It's a film about immortals who gather together in one place to compete for the prize. But like nuclear war, there can be only one: Highlander. Highlander is a film that, in a few ways, is all about second chances. It's got people who don't die when they are seriously wounded, but it's also a film that didn't fade into obscurity when it tanked at the box office. It's like a bird who flies directly into a closed window, is stunned, but shakes it off and flies away. Highlander would be a franchise that involved a fair bit of flying into closed windows, shaking it off, and flying away. Highlander's gestation began not when Mr. and Mrs. McLeod got funky, but when American film student Gregory Wyden visited the Tower of London and wondered what if one person had personally used all the weapons on display. The first version of the Highlander story would be written as a class project, and Wyden would eventually get an agent and sell the script, which was eventually handed off to more experienced screenwriters who tinkered with the dark story about a tortured soul living forever and turned it into something that would work as a light adventure film about immortals hacking off each other's heads with big swords. Australian director Russell Mulcahy had made a name for himself directing music videos, and it was his keen visual sense of style that elevated Highlander from a medium-budget action flick to something that really stuck with viewers. Immortality has always fascinated poets and writers. Turning something that on the surface seems good, say a Labrador who wants to borrow your car to get you some beer, into something that turns out to be a curse. Because it turns out a dog license is absolutely not the same as a driver's license. The film mainly tells a story from a contemporary setting with copious flashbacks to flesh out the protagonist's journey thus far. The story really begins in 16th century Scotland, when the Clan MacLeod face off against their enemies, the Frasers. Connor MacLeod is mortally wounded, yet makes a miraculous recovery. Like the time you deleted all your photos but then remembered you had backed them up to an off-site storage cloud. Except in the 1500s, talking about uploading important data was considered witchcraft, when everyone was still using zip disks. Connor MacLeod is cast out of his village, like a Big Brother eviction, but without the lingering itch requiring strong antibiotics. Unlike a former Big Brother contestant, Connor does well for himself, finding a new home with stunning views and a new woman. But his idyllic lifestyle is interrupted by the appearance of Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez.
I am Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez,
who tells Connor that there can be only Juan. Ramirez has taken it upon himself to mentor MacLeod and bring him up to speed on what it means to be an immortal. If these scenes feel familiar, it's because this sort of training sequence with a magical mentor has cropped up in dozens of movies like Batman Begins and Aquaman. Alright then, 2. But a clearly salivating Connery pretending to know nothing about haggis makes it all worthwhile.
What is haggis?
Sheep's stomach stuffed with meat and barley.
And what do you do with it?
You eat it. How revolting.
The immortals will eventually be compelled to gather and fight each other until only one is left. It's a battle royale, but without the microtransactions. Immortals aren't completely unkillable, they can be decapitated, which is actually pretty good news, otherwise this film would have had a hard time fitting under 2 hours. We learned that over the centuries, MacLeod has travelled a bit, getting caught up in a drunken duel in France, later embroiled in World War II, where he rescues a young girl from the f***ing Nazis.
Whatever you say, Jack. You're the master race.
At some point he based himself in the US and has lived there for generations, where he would assume a new identity every now and then to try and avoid suspicion. Apparently, not selling up and buying a condo in Florida wasn't enough of a giveaway. In the mid-80s, he's living in New York as an antique dealer named Nash, one who's older than some of the stuff he sells, which is in fact the opposite of the greengrocer down the road.
It's tradition.
The local cops become suspicious of Nash after finding a decapitated corpse, but the police forensic expert Brenda Wyatt is more interested in Nash's history than his possible involvement in a brutal decapitation, which, let's be honest, he done it alright, bang to rights. Floating around the story is Connor's rival, the Kurgan, an age-old knight who wants what's called the prize so badly. He leaves a trail of destruction and corpses and postmodern quips in his wake.
I have something to say. It's better to burn out than to fade away.
Brenda has fallen for Connor, but he tells her, only after sex, that he can't be with anyone since they will grow old and die and he will stay the same age, which to be fair isn't the first time she's heard that one. The Kurgan and Connor finally face off on the roof of Silver Cup Studios. though it's mostly filmed in a studio in London since the real Silver Cup Studios wasn't actually destroyed. I mean, that's where they filmed The Sopranos, 30 Rock, Succession, and a lot of other series and movies.
You cannot die, MacLeod.
Highlander is a film that creates its own law and rules. The immortals can feel when another is nearby. They also gain power from a vanquished foe, and whoever ends up as the last immortal is the winner of the prize. One of the perks being mortality, growing old and being able to have children. So you kill everyone around you so you yourself can die from old age. Well, that feels like the sort of sound medical advice you only get from Facebook comments. The main draw of the prize is meant to be the power and knowledge of all immortals. The Kurgan is clearly an edgelord dickhead who's killed many immortals.
At last, the gathering.
So I guess, having killed the Kurgan, have fun absorbing all that accumulated knowledge there, Connor. French actor Christopher Lambert, or for Australian viewers, Christopher Lambert, plays the Scotsman Connor, and if you think his accent is a little weird, well, he apparently didn't speak English before being cast. Normally I would mock, but if you've followed this channel, you know that I don't at least have the excuse of being French.
You talk funny, Nash. Where are you from?
Lots of different places.
Connor is a man who can switch between smart ass and tortured soul fairly quickly.
There can be only one.
And the film in large part works because of Lambert's personal charisma. He feels right, particularly when he's an actual Highlander.
I hate you.
Good. That is a perfect way to start.
Sean Connery playing an Egyptian with a Spanish name and a Scottish accent doesn't sound so silly. Well, actually it does. I mean, really. But then, this is a fairly different role for Connery. Here, he was an aging character actor in a supporting role rather than the lead. Of course, Highlander was made just before he made Untouchables, for which he would win an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, but after which, Connery went back to headlining films.
I'm a movie star again.
Connery is only in the film fairly briefly, but his limited scenes have a major impact on the movie. Roxanne Hart is the spunky forensic expert who falls in love with both Connor's collection and Connor himself.
I dated pieces of the blade at 600 BC. The metal had been folded 200 times. Now, the Japanese didn't start making swords like that till the Middle Ages. So where the hell did it come from?
And of course, Clancy Brown, forever known as that really tall guy with the deep voice in everything, is the wisecracking psycho, the Kurgan. The character was originally written as a darker, more pained creation, something Clancy Brown preferred over the wise-cracking horror movie anti-hero he was asked to play. Highlander has a great soundtrack, mainly provided by Queen, with several of their songs appearing throughout the film, which would also form the basis of their 1986 album, A Kind of Magic. It's not Flash Gordon level quotable, but there are some great tracks. Highlander is a film where the visuals are noticeably amped up compared to most similar films of the time. It's always interesting to look at, though there are a few occasions dotted throughout the film where the inclusion of a particular camera angle or shot here and there can make some of the action feel disjointed, like a G.I. Joe doll owned by a future serial killer. It's a little over the top in places, but that added visual verve makes the film less dated than many of its contemporaries. It's still very much a 1980s film. Is Highlander a great movie? Probably not great, but I would be happy to describe it as pretty good. It's a popcorn flick that doesn't come off as a cheap and trashy exploitation ripoff of a much better film. This is the film that others would steal from. It's got a unique sense of style that helps you overlook the film's smaller issues, such as the Kurgan's dialogue being more painful and cringeworthy than a gender reveal party where the parents end up maiming themselves. Highlander is a film that could easily have been full of itself, just like my autobiography. When it was released in 1986, the film was not a smash hit, earning around $13 million off a $19 million budget, which is, technical term, shithouse. We mentioned second chances, and Highlander was a film that benefited greatly from the home video market of the 1980s, where many films that were considered financial failures at the box office became very popular as rental tapes. Highlander went from a box office disappointment to a home video champ, gaining an audience that realistically he could have only dreamed of in the cinema.
It's a grouse film about some immortal c***s who can't fucking die. Highlander, starring Christopher Lambert.
Highlander's second win was so lucrative that the prospect of a continuing Highlander franchise went from laughable to possible, and with the sequel Highlander 2, laughable again. But we still ended up with several film sequels, spin-off TV shows, an animated series, and of course talk of reboots.
Not if I can help it.
I was one of those people who discovered this film on video, and one of the people who gladly went to see the sequel in a cinema, and thus one of the many who left angry and disappointed, but that's a story for another day. Highlander was a film that overcame its poor initial reception to become a well-loved franchise, with as many ups and downs as the topography of the Scottish Highlands. The film's most quotable line does make you wish the filmmakers had heeded their own tagline before embarking on sequels.
There can be only one.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment below, or check out some of our other videos.